My sister got me kicked out of my own investor demo while my parents told me to grow up. So I left, built a business they couldn't touch, and when they tried stealing from me with forged documents and fraud, I made sure they paid for every single decision. Hey, Reddit. My family treated me like I was invisible while my sister got everything handed to her. So I walked out, built something from nothing, and proved I didn't need them. But of course, they weren't finished trying to ruin my life. Before all that, here's how it started. My name's Rachel M. I'm 26, and 3 months ago, I moved back into my parents' house after quitting a draining IT support job. I wasn't planning on staying long, 6 months tops. I needed the time and the cheap living situation to focus on building my own cybersecurity product. It was supposed to be temporary, a smart move to save money while I pushed towards something better. My family, though, has always been complicated. My mom, Margaret, cares more about appearances than anything else. She's the type who will lie about where we go to dinner, just to sound fancier to her friends. My dad, Graham, is obsessed with status. If it doesn't look impressive on paper, it doesn't matter to him. And then there's Serena, my younger sister. She's 24, runs a lifestyle channel online, and somehow makes every situation revolve around her. Ever since we were kids, I've been the tech girl, the background character. Serena's always been the star. The night of my startup accelerator pitch was supposed to change that. I'd spent months building my product, writing code until sunrise, debugging until my eyes burned. This presentation was my shot at funding. Investors would be in the room, and if I impressed them, I'd finally have the chance to turn my idea into a real company. The pitch was scheduled for 7:00 p.m. At 6:30, I was doing a final run-through when Serena texted our family group chat, "Running late, be there soon." I didn't think much of it. She wasn't part of the presentation. I was halfway through my demo explaining how Vigil detects identity fraud in real time when the back doors opened. Serena walked in with a ring light and her phone live streaming. "Sorry I'm late, everyone," she announced to her followers. "Big career news dropping tonight." The audience turned. Phones came out. Investors started whispering, trying to figure out who she was. I tried to keep going, but the energy in the room had shifted. Nobody was listening anymore. They were watching her film herself in the back row. By the time I finished, half the room was on their phones looking up her channel. The investors who did approach me barely made eye contact before heading straight to Serena to ask about the project. On the drive home, everyone was thrilled. "You both did so well," Margaret said. "Serena's story really made it relatable." "It's good for the family image," Graham added. I stared out the window, trying not to lose it. It wasn't our product. It was mine. I checked my email and saw a notification I'd missed from 3 weeks ago. Grant disbursement co-applicant account updated. I opened my banking app. The $10,000 innovation grant I'd won 6 months ago had been transferred to a different account, one I didn't recognize. I called the grant organization. "Your co-applicant requested the funds be sent to her business account," the rep said. "Serena Reeves." She provided all the verification details. "I never had a co-applicant," I said. The rep went quiet. "You listed her on the original application. It's right here." I pulled up my saved copy. No co-applicant. They'd altered the application after submission. Then I went to my parents. "You stole my grant?" I asked. "Don't say it like that," Graham said calmly. "We invested it. Serena's platform will help all of us." "You should be proud," Margaret added. "We're putting our resources into the future." I didn't argue. I went to my room because I needed to grab my laptop charger. My room was gone. My bed, desk, setup, replaced by ring lights, a filming backdrop, and shelves of Serena's merchandise. "What the hell is this?" I asked. Margaret came upstairs. "Oh, Serena needed the space for her studio. You're barely here anyway. We boxed your things. They're in the garage." That was it. That was the moment. Whatever illusion I'd been holding on to about my family disappeared in that moment. They didn't see me as a daughter or a sister. I was just a tool, a resource to use. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I grabbed my laptop, external drives, some clothes, and shoved everything into a duffel bag. I texted Elliot, an old friend from college who'd been through worse than me and had a spare room. "You still got that space?" His reply came quick. "Yeah, come over." Elliot's place was nothing fancy. 2 small rooms, scuffed floors, a couch that had seen better years, and a kitchen sink that always seemed half full. But the first night I dropped my duffel on the floor, it felt more like home than the place I just left. He tossed me a spare key and said, "Rent's cheap, but no free rides. You pull your weight, you stay." That was all. No questions about my family, no pity, no small talk. That's how Elliot was. Simple, straight, and brutally honest. We'd known each other since college. I'd gone into corporate IT. He'd enlisted and spent a few years overseas before settling back here. Now he worked overnight security at a warehouse. Steady pay, low stress, and it gave him his days free. He had that military discipline baked into his routine. Up early, focused, no wasted time. The morning after I moved in, he asked one thing. "So, what's the plan?" The plan was survival. I needed work, money, and something to build on. I started calling around for tech jobs. Anything, really. Most places either weren't hiring or wanted full-time employees, which I couldn't commit to if I was going to keep developing my product. Finally, I found a small repair shop on the edge of town called Benji's Custom Systems. Benji was a grumpy old guy with more solder burns on his fingers than patience. He barely looked up when I walked in. "You fix laptops?" he asked. "Yeah, hardware, software, network, whatever you need. Show up on time." "Yes." "Fine, 20 an hour. You start tomorrow." The shop was tiny, part workspace, part junkyard. The walls were lined with shelves stacked with outdated hardware people had never bothered to pick up. The first couple of weeks were basic grunt work. Broken screens, forgotten passwords, endless virus removals. But it was work, and for the first time in a while, I didn't feel stuck. I felt like I was rebuilding. One night, about a week after I moved in, we were sitting on his balcony with cheap beers when I finally asked him, "Why are you helping me?" He didn't answer right away, just stared at the street below. "When I came back from my second tour," he finally said, "my brother asked me to co-sign a car loan, said he needed it for work. I trusted him." Elliot took a long drink. He defaulted 3 months later, tanked my credit. When I confronted him, my parents told me I was being selfish, that I had military benefits, so I should help family. "What did you do?" "Cut them all off. Haven't spoken to them in 4 years. He looked at me. "Family's supposed to mean something, but some people just see you as an ATM with a pulse. You did the right thing walking out." I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. "You're going to rebuild," Elliot continued, "and they're going to try to drag you back down, but you're not doing this alone." That was the moment I knew I'd be okay. Then, one afternoon, a woman named Clara walked in. She ran a bakery nearby and looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her entire ordering system had been locked by ransomware. A message on the screen demanded $2,000 in crypto, money she didn't have. Worse, the same system was tied to her freezer monitoring. If it stayed down, she'd lose everything in hours. I told her I'd try. No promises. I pulled the drive, cloned it, and started going through recovery options. Whoever wrote the malware wasn't a pro. It was some basic off-the-shelf stuff. They hadn't wiped the restore points, which was lucky. I rolled the system back to a version from a week before and reinstalled a few corrupted components. As a backup, I set up a separate local monitoring tool so the freezer wouldn't rely on that single PC again. By the time she came back, the system was running like nothing happened. She almost cried when she saw her orders back on screen. She insisted on paying more than I'd quoted and came back the next day with a box of pastries and a referral. My friend runs a flower shop. She needs IT help too. That was the start. One job turned into 2, then 3. Clara told her friend, who told another. A week later, a small design studio called about setting up a network. That's when I realized I didn't need to wait for some investor to believe in me. I could build something right now. I registered Reeves Tech. Just me, a laptop, a basic website, and a few tools. I offered repair services, small network setups, and basic security audits. Elliot helped me figure out pricing. "Stop selling yourself short," he told me. "If you charge like a handyman, they'll treat you like one. Price like a pro." I kept working at Benji's part-time for the first few months, steady income while I built the client base. Once Reeves Tech could cover rent, I went full-time on my own. I started taking on small contracts, setting up firewalls for mom-and-pop shops, building backup solutions for tiny offices, recovering data for people who thought they'd lost everything. The work wasn't glamorous and the pay wasn't huge, but it was mine. I was building something on my terms. Of course, word got back to my family. Serena posted a video mocking me. When your sister fixes printers for pocket change, complete with fake tech jargon and exaggerated hand gestures. Thousands of people laughed in the comments. My parents didn't call, they didn't text. They hosted family dinners and pretended I didn't exist. But I didn't care. I was too busy. Every job taught me something new. How to talk to clients, how to draft contracts, how to run a business. I built spreadsheets to track expenses, learned invoicing software, and spent nights reading about cybersecurity threats. The work was messy, exhausting, and unpredictable. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years: momentum. At the end of my second month, I pinned a piece of paper on the corkboard above my makeshift desk in Elliot's spare room. It had 3 lines written in thick marker: pay rent, grow clients, never depend on them again. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was more than I had when I left that house. And every job, every client, every invoice got me a little closer to never looking back. The first 6 months of Reeves Tech felt like climbing a steep hill with a backpack full of bricks. Nothing came easy, but every job led to another. Clara introduced me to a bakery supplier who introduced me to a small design firm, who then passed my name to a property management company. Most of my clients were small businesses, the kinds that couldn't afford big IT firms, but still needed someone to keep their systems from falling apart. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The real turning point came when a mid-sized logistics company called me in to overhaul their network. It was the biggest contract I'd ever had, and I threw myself into it. Days of wiring, configuring, documenting, and building a security plan that would have made my old corporate team proud. When I submitted my proposal, they seemed impressed, but a week later, they went with another contractor. At first, I didn't think much of it. Then, one of the managers accidentally forwarded me the winning proposal, and it was almost identical to mine. Same phrasing, same pricing structure, even the same custom security recommendations I'd written from scratch. The company name on it, Kovac IT Solutions. I'd heard of Victor Kovac before. He was the kind of contractor small businesses hired when they didn't know any better, always promising premium work for bargain prices, always cutting corners. But now somehow he had my exact plan. It didn't happen just once. Over the next month, 2 more deals slipped away, and both times the winning proposals included information that had only been in my private emails. That's when I realized someone was leaking them. I spent 2 nights combing through my inbox logs, checking devices, IPs, everything. No outside breach. Whoever it was had access to my security questions, things that weren't public but were known by people close to me, like the name of my first pet or the street I grew up on. I only knew one group of people who had that kind of knowledge. Right about then, my parents suddenly decided they cared about me again. They showed up at Benji's shop one afternoon like they'd just been passing by. Margaret walked in holding a bag of muffins, plastering on that fake sympathetic smile she always wore when she wanted something. "Rachel," she said softly, "we're worried about Serena. She's been having a rough time with her brand lately. She's under so much pressure." I didn't look up from the laptop I was repairing. "What does that have to do with me?" "She's thinking of starting a new company," Graham chimed in, "and she could really use your help. Maybe co-sign a small company credit card to get her started." I laughed out loud. "You want me to co-sign a card for the same person who's been mocking me online for months?" Margaret sighed like I was being dramatic. "It's not about the past. This is family. Family helps each other." "I am helping," I said. "I'm staying as far away as possible." They dropped the topic, but I could feel the anger under their polite smiles. They left a few minutes later, and I didn't hear from them again for about a week. That's when everything blew up. One morning, I logged into my business account and got an error. Account frozen. Pending investigation. A $50,000 business loan application had been submitted in my company's name. The bank's fraud detection flagged it because the application came from an IP address that didn't match my business location, and the business verification callback went to a phone number I'd never seen before. Whoever submitted it had my tax ID, business registration, even correct answers to security questions. But they got sloppy. They listed Serena's email as the secondary business contact. When I told Elliot what happened, he didn't look surprised. "They're using familiarity as a weapon," he said. "That's the oldest trick in the book." We spent the next 2 nights building a timeline. Every email, every suspicious login, every point of access. Elliot helped me lock down every account. New passwords, new security questions, new devices. We even set up a separate LLC account under tighter controls so nothing like that could happen again. I filed a fraud report with the bank and contacted the lender directly. It would take weeks to investigate, but at least they froze the funds before any damage was done. Still, the fallout was brutal. My payroll was delayed, and I had to dip into my emergency savings to pay the contractors who worked with me. Two nearly backed out of future projects because they were worried about financial instability. That was the moment I stopped being just angry. Anger wasn't enough anymore. This wasn't about frustration or hurt feelings. This was about control. They were trying to sabotage what I'd built because they couldn't control it. I looked around my tiny office late one night, surrounded by network diagrams, spare routers, and an inbox full of new client inquiries. This wasn't just a side gig anymore. This was my livelihood, and I wasn't about to let anyone, not even my family, tear it apart. I made myself a promise that night. This would be the last time anyone used what they knew about me to hurt me. The next time they tried, I'd be ready. The night after the loan mess, Elliot walked into my office with 2 coffees and a look that meant business. He set them on my desk and said, "We're done reacting. From now on, we build a case and hit back." I agreed. I was tired of being blindsided. We started tracing the loan submission together. After a few calls and some digging, we got the IP logs from the lender. The application came from a public Wi-Fi network, a coffee shop on the west side. Serena filmed half her content there. I knew it immediately. "Too specific to be random," Elliot said. "She was there. Now we prove it." Over the next week, we pulled network traces, timestamps, browser fingerprints, anything we could legally access. The device that submitted the loan matched Serena's laptop hardware ID. Even worse, a second submission attempt came from Kovac IT Solutions. It was now obvious this wasn't just family drama. Serena and Victor were working together. We brought in an independent auditor, David Kim, to verify everything. He went through our data line by line and produced a report that left no doubt. The loan was submitted using Serena's device, and Kovac's network was linked to the same scheme. "You have enough evidence to take this to court," David said. But I wasn't interested in lawyers yet. I wanted to control the story before they could twist it again. A few days later, I got a call from one of my clients, a small real estate firm I'd been managing security for. The manager sounded confused. "Hey, Rachel, is your company offering a new discount package? Serena from your team emailed us about switching to a cheaper plan." My stomach dropped. "Serena isn't part of my company," I said flatly. "Then you should know she sent us your logo, pricing sheets, everything." The client forwarded the email. I checked its metadata. It was sent from Serena's IP. She'd probably pulled my logo off the website and copy-pasted my pricing from old client invoices, documents my parents had access to back when I lived with them and worked from home. That same afternoon, 2 more clients reached out about similar emails. One even asked if Serena had taken over the business. I spent the next 2 days doing damage control, personally calling every client, explaining the situation, and sending a cease and desist letter. Elliot was furious. "They're trying to destroy you from the inside," he said. "This isn't petty anymore. This is sabotage." The next blow wasn't business. It was personal. Serena posted a 20-minute video on her channel titled, "When Family Betrays You." In it, she cried on camera, claiming I had cut them off and refused to help when they were struggling. She called me greedy and ungrateful, telling her followers I'd stolen family money to fund my company. The video blew up. Thousands of comments, most of them calling me heartless. A few people even tried to leave fake reviews on my business page. Some clients saw it too. Most didn't believe it, but one canceled a contract, saying they didn't want to be involved in family disputes. I could have posted a response, but I didn't. Elliot wanted me to, but I knew that's what they wanted, a public fight, something messy and dramatic. Instead, I quietly collected screenshots, URLs, and user data. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to use their lies as evidence later. A week after the smear video, things escalated again, this time face-to-face. It was late, around 9:00 p.m., and I was locking up the office when I noticed a car parked across the street. I didn't think much of it until I heard footsteps behind me. "Rachel!" I turned around. Margaret and Graham were standing there like they'd been waiting. Margaret stepped forward with that fake, concerned look she always wore. "We just want to talk." I sighed. "There's nothing to talk about." "Serena's upset," Graham said. "She was only trying to help the business, and you're making her look like a criminal." "She tried to steal my clients," I said, "and she spread lies online." Margaret's tone shifted fast. "You think you're so much better now, don't you? You'd be nothing without us. Nothing." That hit harder than I expected, but I didn't let it show. "I built this without a dollar from you, and I'll keep building it without you." She tried a different tactic. "Guilt. We're your parents. We raised you. We deserve a little respect, a little support." "You deserve honesty," I said. "And the truth is, you're not part of my life anymore." The argument spiraled. They went from guilt to begging to threats in minutes. Graham warned me they'd go public with their side of the story. Margaret said they'd tell everyone I was mentally unstable. It was ugly and desperate. Elliot, who'd been waiting in the car, came over and stepped between us. "Time to leave," he said firmly. They glared at me one last time and walked away. I stood there for a while, heart pounding, but not because I was scared, because I was done. That night sealed it. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was building something they couldn't touch. The next morning, I shifted my entire focus. I started coding a new feature for my software, a background security agent that could detect suspicious login attempts, device changes, and location anomalies in real time. If someone tried what Serena and Kovac had done again, it would flag it immediately. It was long, exhausting work. I slept maybe 4 hours a night, living on takeout and coffee, but I didn't care. Every line of code was one more layer of armor. Every feature made me harder to exploit. By the time the City Tech Expo rolled around, I had a working prototype. I booked a small booth, nothing flashy, just a folding table, a laptop, and a banner. Most companies there would have full marketing teams and corporate budgets. I'd be the lone independent woman in the room. And I was fine with that, because this time I wasn't stepping into a fight I didn't choose. I was setting the terms. The weeks before the expo were the busiest of my life. Every hour I wasn't sleeping, I was refining Vigil, the security tool I'd been building for over a year, back when I still lived under my parents' roof. Late nights writing code until sunrise, debugging until my eyes burned. After that disaster at the accelerator pitch, I kept building alone, and now it was ready. This wasn't just about software anymore. It was about taking back something Serena stole from me the night she hijacked my first investor pitch. I still remembered how it felt. I was halfway through explaining Vigil to a small group of potential backers when she barged in, live streaming herself and announcing some big career news. Within minutes, the room's attention shifted from my work to her latest influencer stunt. I walked off that stage humiliated. That memory followed me every step of the way. This expo, this was my second chance. And this time she wasn't taking it from me. Of course she was still trying. Her smear video kept circulating, and the fake reviews were piling up. A few clients pulled out of small contracts. Even worse, I got a letter from a law firm representing my parents. It accused me of profiting off family investments and demanded a payout. It was laughable, but I knew the game. They wanted me stressed and distracted before the biggest moment of my career. 2 days before the expo, Elliot forwarded me the exhibitors list. "You're going to love this," he said. Sure enough, buried in the list was a fake company name with Serena's email attached. She was planning to sneak into the event under an alias. I alerted the organizers, and while they didn't kick her out, they promised they'd be watching. Fine. Let her see what she could have never built. The morning of the expo, I wasn't nervous. I was wired. My booth was bare bones. A folding table, a simple Vigil banner, and a laptop running a live demo. Around me were massive displays from multi-million-dollar companies. I didn't care. I'd rather be the underestimated underdog than the loudest name in the room. Minutes before my talk, Elliot pulled me aside. "She's here," he said. Across the room, Serena and my parents stood together, whispering to a reporter. "Good," I said. "Let them watch." When my slot came, the hall was packed. Investors, business owners, journalists. Some of them had probably watched that video of Serena painting me as the villain. I started calmly. 8 months ago, I tried to pitch Vigil at a startup accelerator. That night didn't go as planned, but I didn't stop building. Today, I'm going to show you why. I walked them through the timeline of what happened. The fraudulent loan application, the forged documents, the impersonation attempts. I didn't say Serena's name. I didn't have to. The evidence was all that mattered. On the big screen, I displayed logs showing suspicious device fingerprints, Wi-Fi network IDs, and timestamps, all captured and tracked by Vigil's monitoring system. Then I showed how Vigil responded in real time, freezing accounts, locking access, and flagging unauthorized actions. It wasn't just a tool, it was a system that could have stopped everything they did to me before it even started. David Kim, the independent auditor, stepped on stage next and confirmed the data's authenticity. "This is all verified," he said. "None of it's fabricated." The room went quiet, people whispered, a journalist raised her hand. "Ms. M, is this connected to the accusations made online about you?" "I'm not here to discuss social media," I said. "I'm here to present facts, and those facts speak for themselves." That's when Serena snapped. She stood up near the back and shouted, "This is harassment. She's obsessed with ruining me." I didn't blink. "I never mentioned your name," I said evenly, "but if you feel implicated, maybe ask yourself why." Security stepped in as reporters swarmed her with questions. "Did you file that loan? Did you impersonate her company?" Serena refused to answer and stormed out with cameras following her. From that moment, everything flipped. People crowded around my booth for demos. 3 companies scheduled follow-up meetings right there. One of them was the same logistics firm that had rejected me last year. "We should have gone with you the first time," their VP said. "Let's set up a call next week." That call turned into a 6-figure contract 2 months later. By the end of the day, Victor's company was losing clients. Serena's sponsorships were being reviewed. The video that once made me look like a monster was now flooded with comments calling her a liar. When we packed up that night, Elliot clapped me on the shoulder. "8 months ago, she took your stage," he said. "Now you own the whole room." Back at the office, I opened my email. A new message from Margaret. "We need to talk. This is getting out of hand." I deleted it without replying. For the first time in my life, they weren't pulling the strings anymore. I was. After the expo, everything changed for me and for them. Vigil exploded almost overnight. The demo video was shared across tech blogs, business forums, even a few local news segments. I got more emails in 2 weeks than I had in the last 2 years. Small businesses wanted consultations. Larger companies wanted full security contracts. A venture capital firm even asked about investing. But with the growth came the backlash. 3 days after the expo, I woke up to a flood of missed calls from my dad and a dozen emails from my mom. One subject line read, "You're tearing the family apart." Serena sent a longer one accusing me of publicly humiliating her and ruining her reputation. She demanded I post an apology to her followers. I didn't reply. The messages didn't stop. A week later, Graham called again, but this time he sounded more desperate than angry. "We need help, Rachel," he said. "We're behind on the mortgage. Your mom's credit cards are maxed out. Serena's scholarship isn't enough. You've got money now. Can't you help your family?" "No," I said flatly. "You're cold," he snapped. "Family takes care of each other." "Family also doesn't forge signatures or sabotage businesses," I said. "You made your choices." A few days later, Serena showed up outside my office. She was crying. And for a moment, I almost believed it was real. "Please," she said. "I need tuition money. Just 1 semester. I swear I'll pay you back." "You already stole from me once," I said. "I'm not giving you another chance." Her tone flipped instantly. "You're selfish. Without us, you'd still be fixing phones in a basement." "Maybe," I said, walking past her. "But at least it would be my basement." 2 weeks later, my lawyer, Michael, called with news. The State Financial Crimes Division has opened an investigation into the forged loan application, he said. "The evidence you submitted, IP logs, device fingerprints, timestamps, was too solid to ignore. Do you want to press charges?" "Yes," I said, "no more warnings." The investigation uncovered even more. Victor's company was flagged for client impersonation. Serena received a cease and desist for using my company name. Several of their accounts were frozen pending review. Their situation collapsed quickly. My parents' house, already behind on payments, went into foreclosure. Serena lost her scholarship after the university was informed about the fraud. She dropped out mid-semester. With the fraud case open, my family's finances imploded. Graham was laid off. Margaret started selling off furniture and jewelry. Serena tried rebooting her influencer career, but brands stopped working with her, and her follower count tanked. Meanwhile, Vigil signed its biggest deal yet, a national logistics company worth more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I hired 6 new employees and opened a second office. But they weren't done. Serena posted another video crying about how I'd ruined her life and used the system to punish my own family. My parents told relatives I'd cut them off and refused to help when they were struggling. It didn't bother me anymore. The truth was documented. People could believe whatever they wanted. Then Michael called again. The bank wants to pursue civil damages, he said. We can negotiate a settlement, but it'll still crush them financially. Let them proceed, I said. They knew what they were doing. 18 months later, the investigations finally closed. Both fraud cases were confirmed. Serena received a criminal record for identity fraud. My parents were named as co-conspirators, but took a plea deal to avoid jail time. By then, their world had fallen apart. Even then, they tried one last time. A handwritten letter arrived from Margaret. You're punishing us more than we ever punished you. We're your family. Please stop before it's too late. I read it once and set it aside because for the first time, I wasn't the one drowning in their chaos. They were, and I was finally free from it. By the time the legal mess settled, nearly a year had passed since the expo. Vigil wasn't just a small business anymore. It had become a proper company. We had 2 offices, over 20 employees, and clients in 3 different states. Investors had started calling me, not the other way around. I'd even launched a small scholarship program for first-generation tech students. On paper, I had everything I once dreamed of, but part of me still felt unfinished. It wasn't anger anymore. It was more like a weight that never fully left. The years of being blamed, manipulated, dismissed, I figured it would fade with time. Then Serena reached out again. Her email was short and different from the usual. Please, it's important. Can we meet? Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a diner halfway between my office and where my parents now lived. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. The designer clothes were gone. Her hair was messy. She looked exhausted. Thanks for coming, she said, voice quiet. What's this about? I asked. She stared at the table for a long time before speaking. Mom's sick. Cancer. Stage 3. She didn't want you to know. I froze. Since when? About 8 months. She's been trying to work through it, but the treatments are expensive. Dad's not working. We can barely afford rent, let alone the hospital bills. For the first time in years, Serena wasn't smirking or playing a role. She looked scared. And as much as I tried to stay angry, I couldn't. Why tell me now? Because she talks about you all the time, she said. She thinks you hate her. She says she deserves it. I can't keep watching her like this. I didn't know what to say. I paid for her coffee and left. On the drive home, her words replayed over and over in my head. The next morning, I called the hospital. They wouldn't give me details without authorization, so I had my lawyer send a letter with a cashier's check for the full amount and instructions, payment from anonymous donor. Do not disclose source. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. My mother's handwriting. Shaky, but recognizable. The hospital said a payment came through. I know it was you. They wouldn't say, but I know. Thank you. I don't deserve your kindness, but you've always been better than us. I'm sorry for everything. She must have asked every person she could think of. Eventually, she just knew. That was the last message I ever got from her. She died 6 months later. I thought about going to the funeral. I even drove close to the cemetery that day. But I stopped a few streets away and turned back. It wasn't bitterness, just the realization that some things couldn't be fixed. I grieved, but not for the mother I had. I grieved for the mother I'd wanted her to be. A few weeks later, my dad sent me a short email. I understand now. There were no excuses, no explanations, just that. Serena tried reaching out again. This time it was a long message about how she was in therapy, how she was trying to change, how she was sorry for everything. She said she wanted to start over. I read every word, then deleted it. Forgiveness, I realized, didn't mean letting people back into your life. It meant finally setting down what they left behind. Years passed. Vigil grew far beyond what I ever imagined. We expanded into multiple cities, partnered with major companies, and started offering enterprise-level security solutions. I was invited to speak at conferences. I mentored startups. My name, the one they once dismissed, had weight in the industry now. One evening after work, I got in my car and just drove. I passed the park where I used to bike as a kid, the corner store where I'd worked part-time in high school. Eventually, without planning it, I ended up near the small rental house my parents had moved into after losing everything. A few months later, I heard from an old neighbor that my dad had moved away. Serena, too. No one knew where they went. Maybe they were trying to start over. Maybe they were still running from the consequences. It didn't matter anymore. Now, every morning, I walk by the water near my apartment before work. Sometimes I see my reflection in the glass of my office building. The suit, the team waiting for me, the company logo above the door, and I think about the girl who once walked out of her parents' house with nothing but a duffel bag and a dream. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she couldn't stay where she was. And that's the real ending. Revenge was never about destroying them. It was about building a life they couldn't control and finally being free.